Shiri, thanks for being with us. Can you tell us about this latest red paper, Cashback, what it's all about?
Absolutely. Every year, the Yellowhead Institute publishes a marquee report that is a central issue that communities are grappling with across the country. And last year, we produced a report called Land Back that was about land restoration movements. And this year, we published for our red paper Cashback, which really builds on Land Back, but is more focused on stolen wealth, which is a process that is linked to the process of dispossession that we described in Land Back, but it more closely looks at the impacts on communities of the destruction of their economies and the kinds of restoration efforts that are necessary when those livelihoods are damaged by colonization.
Why did the Yellowhead Institute feel this was a necessary project to take on?
Well, I think the Land Back movement has done extraordinary work in looking at how Indigenous jurisdiction is really central to restoring Indigenous governance and legal traditions and really repairing the damage and challenging colonization. But Cashback takes, I think, a complementary approach in that it looks at a lot of the solutions that Canada has proposed for demands for Indigenous self-determination have been things like devolution, like a policy that returns Indigenous jurisdiction over certain sectors of their lives, but really never provides the resources necessary in order to really provide fulsome child welfare programs or education programs and so on. So we really wanted to look at the way that what we call fiscal warfare is used to perpetuate colonization, even though on paper it looks sometimes like there is some kind of decolonization or recognition process going forward.
What are you hoping people take away from this?
Well, the report is organized into 3 parts, and I think each part provides an important diagnostic and vision for what Cashback looks like. The first section of the report is called How Canada Got Its Economy, and it really looks at and documents how intergenerational wealth was accumulated by private companies and by Canada through the dispossession of Indigenous lands, and really tries to show that that really started this massively unequal Canada between First Nations and the Crown. The second part of the report is called Follow the Money, and it really provides, we think, the most comprehensive analysis that's publicly accessible about Canadian policy on funding relationships. You know, they're so convoluted and so technocratic. It's almost banal to talk about this stuff, but Art Manuel used to say, on the other hand, you don't need a doctorate in economics to know who's going to be rich and who's going to be poor if you look at the distribution of land in the country. So we look at how funding agreements and fiscal relationships and policy have really masked over what is the ongoing theft of Indigenous lands, territories, and resources. And in the final section called How to Get That Cash Back, the main takeaways there are we present really just a handful, 10 different visions that different Indigenous people, communities, groups, organizations have, where they are already continuing the work that's been going on for generations for the restoration of Indigenous economies through treaty-based funding proposals, through litigation around treaties, through abolition movements, youth movements involved in trying to restore resources to keep communities safe outside of state structures and so on. So it really provides lots of seeds for how Cashback could bloom as a movement.
Well, Shiri, it is more important work from the Yellowhead Institute. The layout looks great and everything. Appreciate you taking some time to speak with us about it.
Thank you so much for having me.